Welcome to Meanwhile at the Museum, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes with the people, stories, and shenanigans that make Cincinnati Museum Center what it is. I'm Cody Hefner, and I'm joined today by Mitch Seifert, aka Magic Mitch, who's normally behind the microphone, not in front of it, but we're doing something a little special today. Mitch, why don't you chime in and just say hello so I don't introduce you and then talk for 10 minutes.
Hey, Cody. So today we're celebrating our 25th episode, which was our most recent episode, Tim McQuillan. And this marks just about a year of Meanwhile at the Museum.
So we're taking this opportunity to look back at some of our favorite moments, mine and yours. So we didn't go full 25, but we went top 10, and these are kind of a combination of some of yours, some of mine, some duplicates between the two, right?
Yep.
We picked no particular order to do this. Some of these are favorites for different reasons. Some of them are my favorites, and Mitch is just along for the ride, for better or worse. Some of these are Mitch's favorites, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was a really good one. So we're gonna kick it off with a more recent episode with Catherine Gould, our curator of history objects and fine art. And you have a barrel of toilet supplies, right?
Yes, I do.
We talked about this once.
Yes, it's from the Cold War era. It's I think its technical name is like the SK4 sanitation kit, whatever. And it's basically a cardboard barrel that's, I don't know, about 3 feet tall. And it contains within it supplies to last for 50 people in a fallout shelter for a month. And what you do is you take the supplies out and the bag that they're in and you use the bag to line the barrel, which then becomes essentially the toilet.
50 people for a month.
I think so, yeah.
So that's 150 human days worth of poop in a barrel.
Right.
In a fallout shelter.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So what's the research and development like for something like that?
You know, thankfully we didn't need to use it. Because
but someone had to test it, right?
Somebody decided somebody did the math on this, right?
I think it's always a good day when you get to talk about poop from a historic perspective.
Yep.
But the other thing, as I re-listened to it, my math was off, and no one caught it. We all just let it slide.
I didn't catch it in the edit either.
Because 30 people times
50 people.
50 people, yeah, times 30 days.
1,500
presumptive poops. Although I guess depending on the crackers and what you're eating in there. But Catherine and I had talked about this before, and coming out of it, she said we should have done more poop puns. And so this was kind of our retry to get a little more poop talk and poop puns in it.
I'm not sure we nailed it on the puns, but definitely lots of poop talk.
The takeaway for me is there's a lot of really interesting crap in our collections. Some might even say a ton of really cool stuff.
But in this case, there's no actual poop in the barrel. But we do have coprolites, so that's some real ancient poop.
There's a surprising amount of poop throughout the museums on display, and some in collections. So there's the coprolites, which are dinosaur poop, or fossilized poop, right?
Yep.
If anyone remembers from Mitch's episode, Mitch had a childhood dream of being a paleontologist. So that's up your alley, right?
I suppose so, but I was thinking more bones at the time as a child than poop.
Well, sometimes the bones are in the poop.
They are. Yeah, it can tell you what the dinosaur ate.
And hopefully, if you're in a fallout shelter, there are no bones in the poop. Although, after 30 days, you might be looking to eat someone in the group.
Thankfully, it never came to that.
That we know of. So that one, there were a lot of good nuggets, and that was not a poop pun, in Catherine's episode, and including another moment that just missed the cut. That was one of yours, right?
I really liked when Catherine blew your mind with the pots and the pans. She was talking about the way we look at a lot of historical advancements and like these major moments, but it's so commonplace that we don't think about it.
I had that thought yesterday. I was walking through our Pompeii exhibition, which is a featured exhibition here for a limited time. And there are pots and pans and colanders and things like that in that exhibit. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this is exactly what Catherine was talking about. That people don't think about this. How do they cook all this food, and what did they eat? All this stuff. So that did pop back into my mind, and clearly was in your mind as we were making our top 10.
Yeah, and those ones in Pompeii are really cool because they look pretty much the same as pots and pans do today. And the colander actually has like these really neat patterns in it. It's just like, a more artful piece than what we would have in our kitchens today.
Pots and pans really stuck with you. I mean, that is spot on.
Yeah. So our next moment is when our friend Gwen revealed that in a previous life, she was the Hamburglar.
In high school, my high school job was I worked at McDonald's, but I didn't just work at
As
McDonald's. No, actually, it's Hamburglar.
Sorry, kids. Anyone listening? There's only one Ronald McDonald. We did not ruin the.
It's true.
the lore.
It is. Oh, the stories I could tell off. But I was Hamburglar. I was a North Central Hamburglar for 2.5 years.
Can you come on? Give us the line.
Just rubble. Yeah, you just rubble at everyone. It was the best job of my life. Like this, I love my job, but like stealing hamburgers from children at a Christmas party and then having a child go to Santa, like, don't be mad at Hamburglar. Please give him presents. He doesn't mean to. It's not his fault. He's just a burglar. And I'd be like, rubble, and I'd run off with their Happy Meals. It was amazing. It was so fun. And it was like during the Beanie Baby phase. So like people would like buy all these Happy Meals and then we would donate the food to the rescue mission. So I would go as Hamburglar and hand out food. It was so cool. Like, and I was a birthday party hostess at McDonald's, and I was our high school mascot. So like these kind of things just was Coco the Wildcat.
What?
These kind of things just kind of followed me, and super fun.
This was mind blowing for me. It stopped me cold in whatever train of thought I had.
I know. I was like, you should have led with that.
And it didn't take much prodding for her to do the voice too, to do the line. I think the Hamburglar only has one line.
So that I actually was not up on my Hamburglar lore, and I didn't know that was what he said. So when she said it, I was just like, "Oh, is that what the Hamburglar says?" And I guess it is.
You didn't go to McDonald Land as
well,
a
I did,
kid?
but I didn't know the Hamburglar said "robble."
Oh yeah.
I just thought he liked hamburgers.
That was his thing. That was his. I wonder when the Hamburglar went to this kind of prosthetic-looking face instead of just a person. Because if you Google it now, the Hamburglar has been like sultrified and is kind of like this bad boy of McDonald Land.
I think he went back to the big plastic head. There was like a brief time, and it was somewhere in the 20-teens. He was like suave.
We shouldn't glamorize crime. I think that's what... And Gwen had mentioned she even had kind of this existential crisis that it wasn't the Hamburglar's fault that he wanted to steal hamburgers. Just give the guy a hamburger.
Yeah, he was just born a burglar.
Born a Hamburglar. Man, McDonald Land was wild. Did you ever have to do like safety city training where like on bikes and stuff to learn the laws of the road? Yeah. Ours was McDonald Land themed.
That's fun.
It's so like Big Mac was the sheriff or the police chief, and you had Mayor McCheese and all this stuff. I remember it so vividly. I mean, it probably did more for me than any driver's ed class.
I definitely remember Safety Town, but ours wasn't McDonald's themed.
It was. I wonder if it was like a book it program like you had with Pizza Hut. If you read enough books, you got a free personal pan pizza. I wonder what the partnership was like. I'll have to look it up. If anyone from Lima, Ohio is listening and remembers McDonald Land Safety Town, email us at meanwhile@cincymuseum.org. Let us know. Help solve the mystery. Oh, this is great. Our next moment, this is really fun. Our next moment features you, Mitch.
It does.
Last thing that I want to ask, what's something about this building or about this experience or about the people who work here that if people knew, they would get an even deeper experience?
That's a very big question, Cody. I can't say enough good things about the people who work here, about how passionate they are, about how knowledgeable they are. Everybody's doing everything they can to bring our guests the best experience possible. I think one thing that's kind of easy to miss, not the thing itself necessarily, but the story, is the moon rock. Obviously, the moon rock itself it's got a pretty central position in the space gallery, so I don't think people are missing the rock itself. I think some people might miss the story of the moon rock. You know, that this rock is from the Apollo 11 mission, the very first time humans were ever on the moon, that Neil Armstrong was on the board of the Natural History Museum in the 1980s, and that NASA then offered him a chance to give a moon rock from the Apollo 11 mission to an institution of his choosing, and he chose Museum Center. You know, it's just incredible to me to have that connection to this moment, this indelible moment in human history is really special, I think. And I hope that everyone who comes through understands just how cool that moon rock is.
So this one, people had been asking to get you onto the podcast, and I was leading that charge. We got you on the podcast, which was really great. And you had warned me, I have editing power, so if I don't like what I say, I can just go back and re-record it, which was mostly a joke. But I was listening to it, and I said, I don't remember Mitch giving such a polished answer. I mean, that is a crisp, really great answer. I know Mitch is thoughtful. I know Mitch nails it, but that one feels a little over the top.
Did I go too far?
No.
Yeah, I did end up re-recording a sentence or two here or there. It wasn't really to change what I answered, just kind of the way I said it.
Yeah, you didn't really change the answer. It was just a little more poetic than the first time it came out. And it brought me great joy because I just imagine you listening and you're like, come on, Mitch, you can do it. Let's do another take.
What's the point of being the editor of this show who works in an office where all the equipment is stored if you're not going to use your power, you know?
With great power comes great responsibility. But you did use it for good because it was a good answer. It was bulletin board material. I need to pull it down. I need to quote it. We're going to put it in a pull quote in some of our marketing materials. It was that good.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I mean, to be fair, I do try to make all of our guests sound the best that I can without bringing them all up to re-record lines here or there, even if sometimes it'd be nice. No, our guests have all been great. We've really enjoyed recording, putting out a finished product that sounded good. But, there's always some stuff that goes on behind the scenes that you're just I wish someone said this slightly differently.
What's fun about it for me is listening to it. For me, I had a front row seat to you reacting to your own episode. So I wonder when other people record and they walk out, what they're thinking, oh man, I forgot to mention this, or I blew that question. Or if they listen to it and they're like, if I could take that one back, I would. I'd take another shot at it.
I wouldn't be surprised if the things that some people wish they could have done differently are not the things that I'm noticing. Sometimes it's just the way one answer flows into the next, or some words get caught up together, and I'm I wish I could just make that a little more clear. But it's in most cases probably not that big of a deal because it's just a conversation, and that's just the way people talk. So I'm probably just overdoing it sometimes.
You know who I don't think wanted a redo? This came from both our lists. This was in both of our top 10. What's our next clip?
Our next clip is Mark telling the story of the time he had a mouse in his pants.
This is the infamous Mark Staubitz pants mouse story.
One evening we discovered there was one of the cupboards had some signs of rodent activity, so we cleared that all out. The next morning, it's well, let's see if there's any more signs, and I opened the cupboard, and lo and behold, there's a very sad-looking mouse going, where's all my stuff? Because we cleared that out. So we're well, it's time to go to work, but we have 3 cats, so cats, have at. And the cats were chasing the mouse around, and we figured, okay, well, they can sort that out and get that taken care of. And so it was craziness and mayhem, and it was fun to watch them try to, chase down this mouse.
Circle of life.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, well, they got that covered. There's 3 of them against 1 mouse, so it'll be taken care of. So I go to work. I did my usual morning walkthrough. I, did all the normal things. I went into a meeting. So by now it's like 11:30. I got to work at 8. So I'm in this meeting, and was development for the Space Gallery. So it was fairly big meeting, quite important. We had external partners coming in. We had some leadership members in. So it was a big meeting. And you don't want to disrupt. So I'm sitting down, and I put my leg up on my knee, and I looked down. I was like, oh, there's something at my pant leg. Is that like some dryer lint or something? I wasn't quite sure what it was. And I looked closer, and it's like, no, that's a tail. So apparently
hanging out of the bottom of your pants?
Yeah, so there's just a tail. It's just a mouse tail just kind of sticking out about, half an inch from at the bottom of my pants. And I'm like, what's this? And then I see there's a little lump there too. So, and as it turns out, the cats had chased the mouse around, and it found safe haven hanging onto my socks, in between my socks and my pants. But, we had just started this meeting, so I didn't want to go, oh, my God, I have to leave because there's a mouse in my pants. That seemed inappropriate, so I just figured it's been there for probably about 4 hours by now, so I might as well just sit tight and finish the meeting. So we sat through an hour-long meeting, hour and a half maybe, and so then it's like, well, it's still there, it hasn't moved. So I went downstairs. My girlfriend was a ticket taker, so I was like, hey, the mouse is no longer in residence at home. She's like, how do you know that? And I was like, well, it's right here. And he's like, oh. And I took it outside and let it roam by the fountain.
It just keeps getting better the longer you listen to it, and the longer like Mark goes down the rabbit hole. I mean, what would you do in that situation?
I don't know. I probably would. I mean, you kind of feel like you have to do what Mark did and just sit there. If you try to touch the mouse, if you try to move the mouse, it might just start running all over the office and really mess up a meeting. He said he was pretty fresh at the time here at Museum Center, and it was an important meeting, and he didn't want to, let a mouse loose in it. So I don't know. Would I try to catch the mouse in my hand, or like hold it, or say, "Excuse me, everyone, I need to step outside"? I mean, it clung to his sock that long, so he might have been able to get up and just walk outside.
I mean, he's bonded with it to that point. It was probably harder for him to let it go than it was to just hang on to it, just keep it. But you raise a good point with him being so fresh in his Cincinnati Museum Center time that he did run the risk of that just defining him for everyone who ever met him, like here at the museum. That oh yeah, Mark, he's the guy who had the mouse in the meeting. Like, oh yeah, that's the guy. It's Mouse Staubitz. But one of Mark's colleagues and someone else we've had on the podcast, Dave Might, used to have a pet squirrel.
Oh, yeah?
That he found that I think was sick or injured, and he kind of nursed it back to health. I think he named it Peanut.
That's great.
He would have all these really cool pictures of Peanut on his shoulder, and he'd like be feeding it little nuts. And
I don't think that came up in his podcast.
No. I think Dave is celebrating his 37th year here at Cincinnati Museum Center. So I think in 37 years, you gotta make some cuts in what.
Yeah, there's definitely more stories to tell than we had time for in an hour here on a podcast.
But something that we did have enough time for was a race between Dave Zlatic and I. Do you remember what prompted this?
You might have come into it wanting to race him.
It was literally pause on the recording, walk out, run, and come back.
Oh no, I ran the recording.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it was running the whole time. I didn't go out in the hallway with the recorder, but you can kind of hear your footsteps running down the hallway. So yeah, I've got it all.
Recently, I had said that Bill may be the fastest person in the museum.
Oh, geez. I think you did, but he had still.
But
so,
right now, I want to learn if you're faster than me.
Oh, I think you are, but let's go do this.
All right. What you're about to hear is us walking out of the room to race down the hallway, and Mitch is gonna be the judge.
Okay. All right.
Here we go.
Oh, jeez. Oh, that was exciting. Was Cody by a foot? Is that what it was, Mitch?
About, yeah.
I was working.
Yeah, I was too. I'm not very fast. I don't think I haven't sprinted in probably 10 years.
When's the last time you ran through this building? This is a good time to mention that there is no running in the museum, but we're behind the scenes and we've got badges, so.
I don't know. I don't know if I've ever really ran through the museum. I've walked fast. When I'm late to a meeting, probably.
Yeah. Do you think we need to do more races?
Probably not.
Do we need to incorporate a challenge into every episode?
I mean, that might be fun.
We have another one coming up on our list. So the race with Dave Zlatic, who's our former chief technology officer. But our next spontaneous challenge was one of your tops, right?
Yeah, this was when Cody and Charisse tasted hot sauce. They were discussing some favorite foods, and the topic of hot sauce came up, and Cody said,
I have hot sauce in my office. Do you want to try it?
Yeah.
Okay.
What kind is it? I don't do Tabasco sauce. It's got a nasty taste.
I'm going to go get 2 spoons, and we're going to try this
All right.
hot sauce raw. All right. I literally did run out to get spoons because I didn't have any other food to put on, so we're just going to...
Gotcha.
It is Michael's Exotic Peppers, Black Garlic, and Ghost Pepper.
Oh, it's got that ghost pepper. That's going to make you sweat.
It says heat 10 out of 5. So this is a shout out to Jacob, because after we did Saucy Science, where we tried a bunch of different hot sauces, he's like, I got one for you. So I don't know how runny this is, or if I'm going to spill on the floor.
Let me smell it.
Are you just doing... we got like a teaspoonful.
Yeah.
Does it smell good?
It's strong. Smell it.
Yeah, it smells strong. Are we gonna cheers?
Cheers.
All right.
The whole thing, or are you just going to taste it?
I'll do the whole thing.
All right.
Are you? Oh, you're already in.
I am. It's hot.
I guess
It's about to make me sweat because I was already sweating.
Is it a good hot, or it gets to you a little bit?
It gets to you. It's in your throat. It's not bad. The taste's not that great.
It's making me hiccup a lot.
Here's the thing. I haven't ran and got something to drink, so it's all right. It ain't like those chips. The One Hot Challenge chip.
Did you do that?
Hell no. No. Now, that's a little bit too hot. But this is the right hot because I'm sweating. It's making me hot.
It would have been a lot better if it was on a wing or something and not a
True.
plastic spoon.
Yeah.
This isn't impacting you at all?
No.
I've not stopped hiccuping since we
hot,
tried it.
But it's not like I can't control it hot, I guess. I don't know. My lips aren't burning. So I like to eat stuff that make my lips burn. And if my lips ain't burning, then it ain't that hot.
We didn't have anything to put it on. We didn't have any other food items. I guess in retrospect, I could have got something out of the vending machine, but we opted for plastic spoons of hot sauce. I was sitting closest to you, and I started hiccuping immediately after trying this hot sauce.
They didn't really come through. I think you can hear one or two of them, but it didn't really come through that much. So
it was like so violent and shaking my body, and it didn't impact Charisse at all. But for me, the rest of the day, I was feeling it.
Was that hotter than any of the sauces you did on our Saucy Science video? Our ripoff of Hot Ones?
Our homage to Hot Ones?
Yeah.
It was probably close to one of the hottest ones from our Saucy Science video. I wonder if eating it on something would have controlled it a little better, but I don't remember any of the sauces that I ate on Saucy Science.
It's all a blur.
It kind of is. I'd have to go back and watch the tape. But I don't remember any of them making me hiccup immediately like this hot sauce did.
And that one, you kind of built up to it. So by the time you got to the really hot ones, your mouth was already fried. So
yeah, you're kind of stretching, you're warming up into it. Yeah, we should bring that back. We need to do another. We've had ideas to build on Saucy Science.
Yeah.
So once I stop making you record podcast episodes, we'll get into it. Our next entry in the top 10 comes from our George Reverschel Curator of Archaeology, Bob Genheimer. And he had a couple candidates for the list, but this is the one that made the cut.
When we were digging in 1980, this is in the Queensgate area downtown, so a couple of blocks from City Hall, we did a couple of privies side by side behind this 1840 structure. And this one, we were, I'm trying to remember the depth, 10, 11 feet. We started hitting pieces of blue cloth and all this, and then buttons and things like that. And so it turned out to be a Cincinnati policeman's uniform. The cloth had deteriorated almost to nothing, but all the hardware's there. All the buttons, they had the seal of the city of Cincinnati with Junct adjuvant on it, and buckles, all sorts of other accoutrements with the uniform. In the pocket was a rubber and metal stamp that was corroded, and when we got into it, it had the officer's name
Really?
on it. His name was Charles Dustin. It said D-U-S-T-I-N on the stamp. If we didn't see that, we would have never known what this was. And back at the time when we did it, there was no internet. If you wanted to look all this stuff up, you would have to sit down and read newspapers from cover to cover in city directories. But later on, when the newspapers became indexed and on the internet, we were able to look this guy up. And let's just say he was trouble. He was trouble.
What time period are we talking?
Late 1890s into 1900, 1901, 1902. Okay. And it turns out, and this is the cool part of the story, he was not a Cincinnati policeman. He just had the uniform. He was a mercantile policeman.
So what's the difference?
Mercantile policemen guard property, or they guard people. So he had his own little zone or his territory up in North Avondale that he was working on. And he apparently had a temper and accused other people of horning in on his territories, pulled a gun on one of them, and they had this fight on and off a streetcar. It's in the newspaper. You can read it. He shot this other policeman in the leg, but it just grazed him. He lost his powers as a policeman. He lost his right to carry a firearm. This is back before they had sidearms. They could carry pocket guns. And but a year and a half later, he's right back at it again with the nephew of the first guy. Pulls a gun on him, doesn't shoot him, but they have an arrest warrant out for him. The next day, they find him in plain clothes in a set of stables in downtown Cincinnati. He pulls a gun on that arresting officer, doesn't get to shoot it. They arrest him, and he winds up in the workhouse, the Cincinnati workhouse. He had an insanity hearing where they said he was sane, but he was not well enough to be released to the public. And then 4 or 5 months later, he's moved to Longview State Hospital for the mentally insane, where he spent the rest of his life.
So when did the uniform and the gun end up in? Was it? Do you suspect it's before he ended up at the stables in plain clothes that he dumped it?
We think he just walked in. I have this vision of him walking into the outhouse in the backyard, taking off his uniform, discarding it, and then walking naked back into the house. That's the image I have. He knew he was in trouble. They were going to come looking for him. And I didn't tell you, inside the pocket of the uniform is a pearl-handled .41 caliber Derringer, still loaded.
Really?
Yes.
And that survived?
Yes.
Through when you found it?
Yeah. It's corroded a bit, but it's still there. It's still loaded. It's what they call a poker gun. The barrel twists to the side, you can reload it. So it's meant for short quarters. You have one shot. The only way you're going to get a second shot is if you pull the barrel back, take out the cartridge, insert another cartridge, and close the barrel. That doesn't normally happen. So it was meant for one shot at close quarters. So that was cool to see that. And we identified the gun. It's called a Southerner Derringer.
Really?
Oddly enough, made in the North, not in the South. So we have pictures of what it would look like today. But it's just a great story using the historic resources of newspapers, the archaeology, and showing what was happening. He was the son of a prominent Civil War veteran in Cincinnati and a big-time defense attorney. So there's that story that goes with it. So I just find it a fabulous story.
Had you heard this story before?
So I have heard this story. This is a classic for Bob. He tells it pretty much any chance he gets, but I was glad we got the chance to have him tell it here on the podcast because I'm sure a lot of people still haven't heard it.
It is like a classic, not quite murder mystery, but it is like it has all the elements of an Agatha Christie story or something like that.
It's a really great example of the way we can use artifacts to tell a story that you're pulling from all these different sources, from the newspaper, from the ground, and none of them would be complete without the other. Everything we find gives a fuller picture of what happened. And we still don't know every detail, but it's come into focus more than you might, expect if Bob had never dug in that toilet and found those pieces.
I think Bob's episode probably had the most toilet talk of any because it started probably within the first 10 minutes of Bob sharing a story of his first interaction with Union Terminal, which was he was a young kid and he had to go to the bathroom, and he walks into the bathroom. The urinal is just gorgeous. And he thought, this is too beautiful for me to pee in. I can't go here. But as the episode evolves, then he's talking about digging in privies, which are essentially toilet holes or outhouse holes. And out pops the policeman in the privy. This great story of intrigue and madness. I got the exhibit title right on that episode
You
too.
did.
This was an exhibit we had in like 2014, probably 2014. Medicine, Marbles, and Mayhem, based on just stuff that was pulled out of privy shafts, stuff that people think they're never going to see again, or no one's ever going to see again, and how much we can learn from that, which is also similar to the work that Bob has done at our Newtown site, which is an early indigenous site here in Greater Cincinnati. And what they're really looking at are trash pits, where they've thrown out old food or a pot has broken and they've discarded it in a shaft. And you can tell a lot about the food they ate, the cookware. We're back to pots and pans that they used to cook and things like that. So Bob learns a lot from people's garbage.
It really is amazing. Sometimes I think about someday in the far future, people digging through our landfills, which are a trash pit on a exponentially larger scale than the pits that Bob's digging in. And I'm sure that would be very dangerous and not very pleasant. Right. I'm sure there's a lot to learn in there.
Well, and we've had research librarians on, we've had history curators on, a register on. When you think of landfills and you think of that stuff, what about like digital histories and digital landfills and stuff like that?
Yeah.
And there are already websites that exist where you can look at a website from 2002 that doesn't exist anymore. You can kind of get into this retro web archive, and you think of, you hear these stories from history of people finding these lost letters from this person to this person. It'll be interesting to see, is there ever a time where you find these lost text messages or these deleted emails from this person to this person? And it's not so much to be salacious or anything like that, but what just wasn't important. I delete that email because it's not going to matter. Thinking December 2019, if there's an email, hey everyone, make sure that you are washing your hands, that you're being aware that if you don't feel well, that you're staying home, because there is a new illness that is going around the globe. Just be smart. And then a handful of months later, COVID-19 hit. So I think it's interesting of what our digital privy shafts will reveal.
Well, that's the real danger of the digital media, is that it doesn't leave a physical object. In 200 years, if all the computers, are destroyed in an electromagnetic wave or something, no one's going to be able to dig through that and find those.
If John Connor has his way, they might be. Is that
John Connor's the one defending us.
From the computers, though, right?
Yes.
So he would destroy the computers?
Oh, okay. So,
right?
Well, I guess so, yeah. Skynet,
okay.
He's trying to, yeah. Okay, yeah, you got it.
Really?
Sorry, there's a couple steps there.
I really leapt before I looked on the Terminator reference.
I guess I was trying to say that he's trying to save the world, and my thinking was that if the computers were all destroyed, we'd be in trouble.
So you're on your team Skynet?
Well, I
You're
mean, we
putting
don't,
that on record?
we don't have the Terminators just yet. So, until we get to that point, our modern life is very run on computers.
Well, speaking of Terminator, that is built as all great films and stories are on the stories of Shakespeare, right?
I'm sure somewhere in there, yeah.
Sure. Which I revealed my limited knowledge of Shakespeare in our episode with Whitney Owens. This is something else I know about you. Your love of Shakespeare.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Do you want to have a Shakespeare off? Do you want to see?
Do you want to take me on
Yes.
Shakespeare, Cody?
Yeah.
You're gutsy.
I think it'd be entertaining.
All right.
We'll just go back and forth. The last person to name a Shakespeare play
Oh my gosh.
is the winner.
Okay. Ready?
Yes.
I'm going to start with an easy one. Midsummer Night's Dream.
Hamlet,
A Winter's Tale.
The Tempest,
Coriolanus.
Othello,
Taming of the Shrew.
Romeo and Juliet.
Two Noble Kinsmen.
Sure, that's the thing. King Lear.
Henry the Fourth, Part 1.
Henry V, The Hank Strikes Back.
There's no subtitle on that one.
But is there Henry V?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
that counts.
All right. Henry the Sixth, Part 1.
Hold on, I'm trying to think.
I'm
which
giving
one.
you hints here.
Macbeth. Has anyone said that?
No, but now you've jinxed the entire museum, so good job, Cody. You're supposed to call it the Scottish play. So technically, even though
The
we're not in a
Scottish play.
theater, although we have a theater in this building, I should send you out of the recording studio, make you spit, swear, spin around 3 times, and only then can you come back in, because then you will have, like, unhexed us.
When we're all fair, I probably will swear. So I've got that part down.
Are we still going?
Yeah.
Okay, Henry the Sixth, Part 2.
Lady the Scottish play.
No.
It's not? I thought it was like a Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man situation.
Lady the Scottish play.
I was pretty out on a limb there. I know that Lady the Scottish play was a big character in that particular play. And you heard Whitney saying part one. So
She was trying to get you to just say Part 2.
no, that's too easy. I wanted to swing big, but also, so Whitney's fantastic because she didn't even break a sweat in our Shakespeare off, but every month I will send an all staff email and I'll pepper it with gifts of different things. And I always think to myself, what people on staff have no idea what Billy Madison is, what Happy Gilmore is, or like where half of these gifts come from. And that person is Whitney Owens. Because Carl Weathers had just passed away hours after I'd sent an email that was pretty peppered with some Carl Weathers gifts. So then I had to send another email to say, oh, I'm very sorry Carl Weathers has passed away. And Whitney said, hi, I don't understand any of these references. Can you explain it to me, please? I guess what that clip and what that episode revealed is 80s action movies and 90s comedy movies are my Shakespeare's. And that is not flattering for anyone.
All right, if we have Whitney on again, we can have an 80s action movie off.
Oh my
instead of
gosh,
Shakespeare off.
I would love that. We might have to do a part 2 just so I can get some redemption. How would you have fared in a Shakespeare off?
I might have taken some of Whitney's bait on the Part 2s. She would definitely beat me, obviously. She's our resident Shakespeare expert.
But you'd have performed much better.
I wouldn't have gone with Lady the Scottish play.
But it made the top 10, so it was all worthwhile.
It was all worth it.
All right, we have 2 more, and I think these are both fun. I'm going to let you lead these
All right,
2.
so we were talking to Mary Fitzpatrick, who's been with the museum for a very long time, first as a volunteer and now as a staff member. And something came up that was a mistake, but let's just take a listen.
I grew up in Mount Airy, and my backyard went downhill, and there was a creek at the bottom. And then you went uphill, and the other side of the creek was Shepherd Creek. And then on this side, that was Mount Airy Forest. So it was wooded. I'm sorry, that's my phone.
That's okay.
I thought I turned. I can't turn that off. We can put it outside the door. No, I'll sit on it. There's a buzzer that I can't seem to make turn off. I worked for Radio Shack for 5 years. I soldered a chip in my first computer to make it 128K. It was a double disk drive, 64K, amber screen computer from TRS DOS from Radio Shack. I used to be really good with computers, but somewhere along the line, I now have the worst computer karma on the planet. If there's a way some kind of electronics can freak out when I'm touching it, it will happen.
Okay, so normally I would have edited a phone interrupting us out, but Mary segued from the phone into the next part of the conversation, and there was no clean way to edit it out, and thus it stayed.
It was so intertwined into what she was talking about.
It was too integral.
And for anyone who knows Mary, we say off the top of that episode that she looks like Miss Frizzle from the Magic School Bus. And she does, and she is so wonderfully delightful. I mean, part of the purpose is we want to introduce you to people who work here, to people who really make this place sing. And, you know, everyone has their different personalities, and everyone has their quirks and their moments. And to me, it was a really fun, humanizing moment for her, or it's something that's happened to everyone all the time. And just being able to witness her reacting to it, I think was kind of fun, and just saying, this is Mary. This is Mary in her element.
You know, I think there were at least one other time that her phone made a noise that I was able to take out. But it was on that occasion. It just went right to the conversation, and it couldn't come out.
Yeah, there were definitely indicators that moment was coming, but our final moment in the top 10 fittingly belongs to Elizabeth Pierce, and she had a couple gems, but Mitch, you picked this one in particular.
I did. People who only see Elizabeth in behind a podium or in an interview somewhere might not get a full picture of how fun she can be. And I think she showed a lot of that in the podcast we did with her. But this moment in particular was a favorite of mine.
You were going out of town on vacation once, and you texted me and said, I'm heading out in a little bit, but I'm available for you if you need anything. And I said, great. And 5 minutes later, I called you, and you did not answer.
Psych!
Nor did you return the call. So I was like, well, that's great. That's a great sentiment. It just didn't work out.
I'm sure there was some reason that I couldn't pick up the phone immediately when you called me, but you know I'm always available to talk to you.
I know, for the most part.
Yes.
I just really like Elizabeth Says Psych.
I'd forgotten that she had done that. You're absolutely right. Elizabeth she's so composed, and she hits the right notes all the time. She knows the key messages. She knows what we need to convey as an organization in the moment, and she brings that energy and the love for the museum, for curiosity and learning to it. But she's also very aware that she is representing the organization, so she hymns in a little bit. But yes, behind the scenes, and in this moment, she's very fun, and it's fun to get her in these candid moments.
When that happened, when you called and there was no answer, were you just hearing her say psych in your head?
No, but now I am. I was so dumbfounded. I was like, you just told me. Hey, I'm available if you need me. And I said, okay. And it wasn't me saying, let me test this or I'm going to abuse this. It was something, she had sent me that message because we were talking about something. And there had been a new development in it. And I said, oh, okay, let me just check in with her real quick. And nope, nothing.
Well, that's how it goes. Nobody's available 24/7, even when they say that they can be reached. And I'm sure she got back to you. So
yeah, and it's always, I am blessed or cursed to operate in a similar style as Elizabeth, in that as long as I've known Elizabeth, for a very long time, she would pack her schedule. and just be running from one thing to the next. And, something would come up. So she likely said, hey, I'm available if you need me. And then immediately went in to do something else and focus completely on that. Or, she gets engaged in conversation with someone else. So I'm very sympathetic to saying, yeah, no, don't worry, I'm going to go do that right now. And in the 3 steps it takes me from where I just said that to where I was going to do that thing, something happens in those 3 steps that just shoots me off in another direction. And you're often a victim of that.
Well, I think I've done it myself too. So it's like, yeah, I'll go do that. And then I sit down and I've got 3 other things to do. And it's like, okay. You start
running through that checklist in your mind, and everything else piles up on it. But Elizabeth she's very good at coming back to things. She knows how to set it aside in her mind where she can see it, so she will come back to it. And so sometimes you just have to ride that wave with her. But I think it's always good to have the perspective that you don't know what everyone else is doing, what they're working on, what other stuff they may be bringing in with them. So just giving a little grace and kind of meeting people where they are and understanding, yes, I know this is a priority for you, but in my list of priorities, that actually ranks down here. So we're going to try to find a way to make it work for both of us, but we're both going to have to give on that timing a little bit.
And then if it doesn't work out, just say psych.
Yeah, just say psych. The speaking of things that don't always work out, or maybe it did, later in Elizabeth's episode, she tells the story of the time she set the bushes on fire here at Union Terminal for Union Terminal's 75th anniversary, which would have been in 2008. And I think my favorite moment from that part is when she is describing standing there watching the fireworks and then seeing the fire trucks come down Ezra Charles and up the driveway. I mean, she could just see it and just letting that weigh on her as she's watching those come up. So I think she's usually supportive of our shenanigans, but she also knows where the line is because she herself has been a victim of her own shenanigans. Thank you all for listening to Mitch and I recap some of our top 10 moments. And we sat down and we had, probably 20 or more. We've had, as Mitch said, we've had 25 episodes, multiple moments from each episode to choose from. So take a listen, cruise through the episode list, find your own top 10.
Yeah, so thanks for being with us for almost a year now. Keep tuning in. We're going to have a lot more fun stories coming up, and you might be hearing from me a little more often.
We're going to make an effort to put Mitch on mic every episode. When we record, it's a really fun process for me to be able to have eyesight on Mitch to watch him react to the conversation. So I'm excited for him to share that with everyone in each episode. We're also going to have some fun guests coming up as we keep it rolling. But if there's anyone you would love to hear from, if there's any questions you have, or if you just want to tell us how much you love the podcast, email us at meanwhile@cincymuseum.org. And remember to please rate, review, and subscribe. But more importantly, come see why Cincinnati Museum Center is as wonderful as it is for yourself. Thanks for listening.